All right, welcome to Storytime Podcast. Today I'm here with the Kiwi and Chief for the Lost Soul series on this podcast. Hi guys. I know
Uh,
Grandma's a bit
Hello, Rose.
under the weather.
Grandma's a bit under the weather and can't really talk, so we will not make her strain her voice. But she says hi.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really like this story. I told you not to strain your voice, Grandma. But yeah, I really like this story, Rose, because I feel like a lot of people will, in some way, uh, connect to this story because it affects a lot of people. So yeah,
Okay.
this is Losing the Way. Our story is one of many that float on the winds of time. It's a story that has affected many throughout history. And no matter how many times the story plays out in people's lives, it is one of the hardest things to deal with, let alone help someone who is suffering from it get over, because you may one day have control of it, but you are never truly the same. The story starts inside a lodge of a family of four. The mother is hard at work preparing breakfast for her family as the two children, both boys. Is that you making all that racket, Rose?
No,
I hear background noise from your.
I will mute my mic on here. So continue.
Okay, that's like okay. Um, our story starts inside a lodge of a family of four. The mother is hard at work preparing breakfast for her family as the two children, both boys, sit on the floor playing with their carved wooden animals their father had made for them. It is just as the mother has finished preparing the food and is putting it onto the small wooden bowls the family used to hold their food that her husband comes stumbling through the door of the lodge. A large water skin under one arm, his speech, a large water skin under one arm, his speech is slurred as he stumbles forward. The woman is almost brought to tears, knowing that again he had traded all the hide they had spent all winter gathering and tanning for the evil drink that had taken over his life and made him no longer the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. Knowing she must be strong so the children do not know there is anything wrong, she tells her husband to come and eat, but is only met with an annoyed grumble as he takes what she expects to be another long drink from the water skin, with some spilling from his mouth and down his chin in his drunkenness. The children rush to get the food, which isn't much but a bit of fish and some corn mixed with a few green beans from their small garden. After everyone eats, the mother collects the bowls and the children run off to play with other children. Did you get anything other than that poison you're drinking? She asks. With barely opened eyes, he looks at her with a look that can be interpreted as hate and grumbles. I got everything you said and some things for myself, for me. She nods at his words and wipes away a tear that has spilled from her eye. And after turning back to her work, she says a prayer to Creator to help her family through this ordeal, if only for the children's sake. To be continued.
Very interesting to start with. And I can see what you mean by how it can affect other people and many people. This particular subject that we're talking on.
Yeah. Okay, this is The Way Back. A few days had passed since the husbands returned from the fort, and after hauling everything in from their small travois, she found that he had indeed gotten everything she had asked for. But the only problem was that he had only gotten half of what the pelts and various other things she had sent with him to trade would had possibly gotten. Again, knowing she would have to rely on herself to feed her already struggling family, she can barely hold back tears as she thinks about how they barely survived the last grueling winter, having relied on the village's food supply more than any winter before that one. The simple reason being that her husband had been too addled to bring home anything larger than a few rabbits that winter, and how she had she had to go to friends and family within the village to make sure they did not starve. It seemed as the days passed that her once loving and providing husband withdrew and would go days without returning home. And it was then that she began to notice that portions of food and even vegetables from her garden went missing. And upon questioning, when he did return, he simply blamed the children and other villagers for taking them. The days seemed to pass with the swiftness of the rushing river, and before she knew, the first cold breath of winter had begun to be felt around the village. She had long prepared for this, but knew that the food she had stored away from her garden and dried meats from the fish and other animals they'd hunted that year was nowhere near enough to for what for what they would need to get them through the winter. With the passing days, her husband was there fewer and fewer, which only added to her stress about feeding her growing children, along with doing everything else that needed to be done around the house. With no one to talk to about her situation and never wanting to show distress in front of her children, she waited until night when they all went to bed to drag her exhausted body to bed, where she cried herself to sleep, which at this point of her despair had become an almost nightly experience. To be continued.
I'm trying to see where that's going. I say that, but what's the conclusion? And
Don't worry, Rose. It has, not to spoil the ending, but it has a happy ending.
aw, all right, continue. What do you want to hear?
But you have two more chapters, two more things to read before.
Oh, okay.
This is The Way Changes. The next morning brought little in the way of comfort for the heartbroken woman, for many reasons, but mainly because her husband did not return the night before. And even though this had become the norm, it still hurt. But like every morning, she knew she had to put on a face of strength for the children. So, like every morning, she got up out of bed and went to start the lodge fire and try to make something to eat for her boys. She would save the tears for later when she was alone again that night. After splashing some water on her face to wash the sleep from her face, she sets about making food, but is interrupted when her husband stumbles through the lodge door, his features sunken from his diet of only the deviled drink and little food. But that seemed to be the least of his concerns, for he tells her that a strange tribe is approaching from the north, and the village is gathering a war party to meet them in battle. It had been said among the people that a band of strangers had been ripping through many neighboring villages using thunder sticks that held the power of 10 bows and 5 warriors. Are you sure you are well enough to go, husband? She asks, to which he scoffs. You think I want to be thought of a coward? No, it's just she starts. Silence, he yells. With this, she turns away with her eyes full of tears as he gathers his things and leaves. To be continued.
Oh, for the conclusion. Will he survive the battle?
Will he survive? Will he survive and make it back?
Okay.
This is this is the way found. Our story is one that has affected countless lives throughout the history of both storytelling and of living in general. For some have lost their way and have done things they never would had otherwise. But knowing this doesn't lessen the impact of their choices, let alone the consequences of said actions. We begin as we left in the story at last hearing, at the side of a grieving woman whose husband had left to defend their village from intruders who sought to do the people of the village harm, as they had many villages that were in the surrounding area. With her husband having just left after a rather harsh exchange of words, the woman stands alone in the main room of their lodge, tears brimming her eyes as all the hurt and anguish threatens to overcome her for the first time in a long time. But like all the other times, she gives herself a quick shake and pushes the tears aside, knowing they will do nothing to ease the worry of her husband going off to battle, let alone the worry of if he is one of the men who are for sure to fall in the upcoming battle. She distracts herself with cleaning the lodge as she waits for her children to return from playing with the other children. It is while doing this that she finds her husband's hiding place for the wicked drink that had stolen his spirit and made her lose her love for a man she had thought she would never lose love for, which again causes the tears to fill her eyes, but knowing if she lets them fall, they would accomplish little to nothing towards making her feel better, let alone make her life less miserable. It is while she is pushing the sadness aside that she hears sounds coming from outside and rushes to the door of the lodge to see what is happening. And it is as she opens the door that she, along with everyone else in the village, watches as a young man, bloody from battle, staggers his way towards them, almost falling as he uses the last of his strength to push forward despite his injuries. But his wounds prove too much as he falls onto the ground, and the people crowd around, and he tells them the other men were massacred by the men with the thunder sticks, and that he was sent back to the village to tell the people their hope of being spared. The other villages' fates had been brushed aside as easily as the wildfire scorches the grass of the prairie. A few days had passed when a man walked through the village. From when the man walked through the village entrance covered in torn, bloody clothes. The man stumbled forward as the people gather around to see why he is in such a state. As he is held up by a couple of men from the crowd, he tells the crowd of people that he was one of the men who went to fight the invaders who had killed so many, and that by only the favor of Creator was he standing before them that day. It is while he is telling his story that his wife pushes her way through the crowd, having recognized his voice, tears falling down her face for having thought him lost with the others that had been killed from the group of men that day. When he sees her, he pulls her into his arms and tells her that he is sorry for being such a bad husband and father, having been so close to death and knowing his soul had been corrupted by the evil drink. He tells the crowd how he lay there on the field of battle. As he lay there on the field of battle, a wolf had appeared to him, and that it was this wolf that had shown him the way back to his family and his people. From that day on, that man lived his life only for his family and his people, for he had truly been shown the way, and he never wavered from it for the rest of his days. The end.
So, after seeing such a battle, it was never again lifting the bottle, right? Or lifting the drink.
Yeah,
Life and death could probably do that to you to have enough effect to scare a person to be straight, right?
yeah, pretty much. But you could also see it. as him seeing the whole mortality of it and how being that the way that he was um, could have just made his life pointless. He could have just been another person that died. And rather than that, the wolf was there. The wolf showed up to show him that he needed to be back with his family and that his family actually needed him. And most people that experience something like that aren't just shown that because they don't have a purpose. It's sort of a, well, you better get your stuff together, for lack of a better word. And because you could have just been another person that was laying there on the field of battle
True.
dead.
But you can see the effects again, and you're talking like even just historical time. We know these large thunder sticks are, um, how much that has invaded people's livelihood because even alcoholic spirits coming in at those times, it
Yeah.
affected a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, make these choices, like you're saying, this feeling not like they had a purpose. Um, and honestly, when you look at things like alcohol and drug use, even drugs that some people say it's not addictive, it's the fact that it's the person, right?
Yeah.
So if a person doesn't feel their self worth, their purpose, or self love, it doesn't matter what the substance, it doesn't matter if it's a video game, it doesn't matter if it's anything for that matter, anything that would pull them into an escapism type mentality. But how long do you escape until it's death in a way, right?
Yeah.
That looks you in the face.
Or how long do you escape before you've lost your way and that's the only way you know?
Hmm. It's interesting because it parallels a conversation I had with two other people in the last few days. So very much, and we don't talk between each other. So very much in sync. It goes with
Yeah.
people who've experienced it. Again, alcoholism, drug escape, drug abuse, any of those. You can kind of see where a person, you see their worth, you see, that person and all their potential and they can be, and it's still not a choice you can make for them. It's their choice, right? Most people don't,
Yeah.
they don't get help for it unless they want to. You can put them in a program. We could do all those, 12-step programs that it is, but the person has to want to change. They have to want to have their self-worth, their self-love. They have to want to see something other than just the escape from the world that we're in.
Yeah. They have to find their own way back to where they were before they basically got lost.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where we would talk about again the happiness part. A lot of people, they don't see, like, alcoholism in itself is a disease, right? And it is.
Yeah.
It's basically, again, like we're saying, somebody's mind is in a way lost. They're lost with because they're not addressing the issues they have in their life. They're escaping from it. Um,
Yeah.
Even right down to at times seeing the habits of, again, playing video games. I've seen that happen where people just completely immerse themselves in it, where it's like the outside world is there. And when you ask them, okay, well, what about going out? It's like so much of it is out there hurts them, and they don't feel that they can help change it, change the world, or at least help make the reality space better. So what do but escape into something else?
Mm.
So it's something you see and you think about, and then being a person who's on a receiving, you're on the opposite end, watching your family go through it, watching this person you know family member, whatever it is, to go through something that is basically a disease, an
Uh,
intoxication, right? um Sometimes that can be hard on a person.
yeah.
You get that heartbreak.
So, what did you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. It was very
I thought it
much,
was a really good one.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much like I said, on the line of a few conversations in the last few days I've had with people who both saw the receiving end. They were on the end of escapism with alcohol abuse or substance abuse. And another person I talked to actually saw somebody doing that actually lose their life because of escaping into drug abuse. So, and having the like you said, having this conversation of some people don't find their way out, right? They don't find it the moment when they
Yeah.
lost. Some people lose everything to escape in a reality that they don't want to be in either because they don't know the way out. They're still lost.
Yeah.
Which is why we are here in this Discord in a way, all of us together, because we're here
Yeah.
to help people not feel so lost, right?
Yeah.
There's always a way back. There's always a way to move forward. So, and there's different.
So is that a hint to join the Discord?
Yeah, I hint to joining both of them. Grandma says it applies to so many. It does. In so many different ways it does. Some people, honestly, I'll say with energy healing, when you're sending something that is pure unconditional love and people don't feel that on their daily basis, they're not able to make it inside of themselves, that even just that healing itself can be addictive.
Uh,
Person wants to feel it. They want to feel a desire. They want to feel unconditional love in that way. And you see that in the world. There are so many conditions on people, on just living in general. There's so many boxes, so many labels. How can we box you up, put you in tiny little boxes, right? Boxes within boxes. Some people are like, you're in this box, and then
uh,
you're in another box. It's like, oh, geez.
yep.
And it's
Don't
finding,
let people put you in boxes, Rose.
yes, that includes our own self. Don't put yourself
Yeah.
in a box either.
Because that's what most people do is put themselves in a like, oh, I'm only good at this, so I'm only able to do this thing. You know,
Yeah. Or they say that
we
they're
should think of
just.
ourselves of yeah. We should think of ourselves as limitless. Like we have unlimited potential.
Mm-hmm. You're connected to
Uh,
again, it's unconditional love of source, right? Source energy, source
uh,
pure unconditional love. So there's no condition, there's no limit, then there's no stopping. And when even just some people put themselves in a label, like I could say I am just Rosemary sitting here, but we're just so much more than that. It's the name we give this avatar so we have a reference point,
yeah.
but it's not just a stopping point.
Hmm.
And it comes with perception. How many times, as we said, there is a different version of you for every person you know.
Yeah.
And then there's you in your core.
Uh,
So there's the only
but when
person.
you're speaking from truth, aren't you speaking from your real self?
Exactly. And there's so many few people who can see the genuine, the light, the true part of a person, right? I feel there's so many few people
Mhm.
that do not see because they're still seeing from their perception. But somebody you can
Yeah.
tell who's genuine from their heart and speaking truth, you can feel it, you can see it. And even if your subconscious feels it. So it's when we start
Yeah.
having emotions get in the way of who we are, of what we're saying, and what. That's why text is often misconstrued, right?
Uh,
You can read a sentence in a way that anybody can take in any way of perception that they're in.
yeah. And that's like having somebody read your story.
Hmm.
If their perception is off, they're not going to really get because a story can be taken a whole bunch of ways, right? Depending on how you're feeling and your environment and all that sort of thing. So if a person is in not the best place themselves or not in the best place in their environment, they're only going to see the negative parts of the story.
Yeah, yeah. It's and it like well, Grandma just says, I'm going to replace the need word. So we should remember our glass is not half full; it's overflowing.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's half full with liquid, it's full with air, right? It's still full. And then you have
Yeah.
the glass itself, and then We look at the glass and we have to go, and I say we have to, we look at the glass and we should look at it as being, like I said, a box, a container. You are
Yeah.
the glass. You're the air outside the glass. You're the air inside. You're the water inside.
Uh,
Therefore, limitless. But as you said, like, so this negativity, like, you could read a sentence so many different ways, but it just depends on the person's perception in it. And when we apply the
yeah.
extra emotional context to a sentence, it's extra code, it's extra bits being introduced into it. And it's from our perception instead of reading it for exactly what it is, just words.
Uh,
And then, even the amount I've said in the last few days, we can see from all perspectives, but I say we truly don't understand a person's reaction to actions because we're not that person. You
yeah.
can explain a situation scenario and what you would do in that situation and scenario, but if you're unless you're the person and their past and their whatever they've went through in their entire lives and their feelings and their emotions, and you're walking literally in their body, you're able to be them. There's really no way to say how you would react.
Uh,
So
and
it's
so what you're saying is we should put our best foot forward. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
And hope people understand that it's our best foot
Yeah. Well, go with no
and not that,
judgments.
yeah, and not that we're trying to trip them. We're just trying to progress forward.
Hmm. We're here in a way to, again, you could be empathic. You could see into that. You could see in the library the memory, the feelings, the emotions. We can see why a person maybe have did react that way. You can go that extreme,
Yeah.
but honestly, to judge the person based on a particular scenario or memory or anything, that's judgment. That's still limitation, and you're judging it from a perspective that only you can understand.
Yeah.
So a true understanding would be not to have that judgment at all,
Mhm.
to just observe it as an observer with no emotional attachment, not even a personal ego attachment, like what we want to put our how do we fit into it, right?
Uh,
It's to look at it and observe it for what it is.
because a lot of people look at what you say as sort of an attack. How can I switch this around to where it can seem like they're trying to attack me in some way,
Mm-hmm.
which would be putting themselves in the victim mentality, which is putting yourself in another restriction or another box. So, yeah, some people do it basically subconsciously as a protective um, instinct, I guess you'd call it, when really there's nothing that's trying to hurt them in any sort of way.
No, a person's when we understand a person's actions isn't about us. A lot of times their actions reactions is a lot about themselves, right? Shows a lot of who they
Yeah.
are. We're not here to I don't control a person's reaction. If I say something and I'm
Uh,
saying it in a calm manner and it's perceived as an attack and a reaction happens that is extremely explosive, that's like, okay, well, we weren't sitting here intending to do that.
uh-huh.
It's also when that person, I've had that happen where people have said, no, that's totally what you're intending. And it's like, again, that goes back to now, how can you know what a person's feeling? You're not that person.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, it's very much, and again, you see in that story, it's like you can see the person, you see the woman's heartbreak, that it's a disease, it's something that has overtaken her husband, but how much it affects other people around them. You still have the effect of our reactions around us.
Uh-huh.
But coming out of that, I don't think you would think that anything would change that, right? Would change how that she could do anything to help him change his perception. It had to take, it looked like it took something that was life or death to actually have him have that aha moment to be like, oh.
Uh-huh. But you see, in the story, she never judged him. She
Mm-hmm.
never said anything bad towards him. It was always either just trying to get on with the conversation, or it was trying to hide that he hurt her in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And she never. because let's let's face it, most people in that situation is going to try and like downgrade him. They're going to be like, oh well, I don't deserve this, and he should be just be the person that he was, and so on and so on. But when you really care for somebody, you wouldn't look at them in that judgmental way. You would be like, well, this is how it's going, and so if I care about him, I'm not going to make it worse by downgrading him. I'm just going to be here for him, even if it hurts me, basically.
Yeah, it's still unconditional love. I could
Yeah.
even relate some way in that story and relationships I've had past where you can see this person was self-destructive, and yet I had stood and stayed to support a person to help them see that what they were doing is self-destructive, because you can tell
Uh,
that this person was pushing a lot of people away. They didn't know who they were going to be. They were reacting to people. They were being self-destructive even to themselves, whether that through drug abuse, like I said, video games, any kind of addiction in that way. And to just stand there and be supportive. Okay, I'm here. Like, just to stand there.
yeah.
You could still love that person very much. And it's funny because, like, so talking in the last couple of days with people, there's no, from I know for myself, I don't hold any grudges or hate for a person, regardless of what is being projected at me, because even I can honestly say I don't have any enemies. Now another person may consider me an enemy, but I don't have any enemies, because I look at a person as going, you helped me to see something in myself with just the scenario situation going through. I can
Uh,
look at it as being spiteful and wanting to get back at a person and all this, but that's not unconditional love. And we can look at it as, okay, thank you for showing me that perspective in this frame. I see that you as an individual, or the people may be hurting, you're unhealed, but I'd still love that person. We see that they're in a cycle. We see that they don't see it themselves that they're trapped in that cycle, but we do.
yeah.
So the best thing we can do, if they're not willing to take advice to get out, if they're projecting, attacking, coming back, retaliation, is to take that step away and love them, and not go
Yeah.
after them, not make anything worse, not try to point it out. And that's something that a lot of people, I feel like, don't. It's like they want the eye for an eye mentality. So we walk around with a bunch of blind people, right?
Yeah.
This doesn't quite help. So
An eye for an eye only leaves both people blind.
basically, yes. Yes. So to have that mentality of,
That's a
that's
great idea for a story.
it is a good idea for a story. That whole, and you know what? It's funny because there are a lot of stories like that. We see the
Yeah.
brothers' stories. You see them. One is
Yeah.
spiteful because one is getting more than they think that they're getting more than somebody else. But regardless, this law of cause and effect in the world we live in, eventually it balances itself out. If bad karma is going somewhere, bad karma will go there. Who are we to say or dish it out to anyone?
Yep.
If a person's hurt, again, people who are hurt people. So if a person's hurting and they're hurting us, why would hurting them back make it any better? It just perpetuates the cycle.
Yeah.
So the
Because because in the end, you really don't know if you hurting that person back is going to affect other people.
mhm, the best way that we get through that is to show people how they hurt, and usually it's them hurting themselves more often.
Yeah.
So eventually that hurt, once we notice that it's not about us, it doesn't affect us as much. It doesn't go, we could take a step, like we're saying, take a step back out of it. That's often what I said. Narcissists, murderers, they're not born that way. It's a set of circumstances that they go through to create an individual in that manner.
Uh-huh.
So we could sit here and look at them as being horrible people, and everybody said they're horrible, such horrible people, and narcissists are cruel, and there's no way to save them, and their hearts are cold. And or we can look at it as, why are they hurting for them to be perceived in that particular label box, right? Why?
Uh,
What made that person into a person who doesn't trust, into a person who uses people?
uh,
What twists a person to do that? So enjoying the perspectives of story time. Thank you. And honestly, so I would ask people out there to, as much as Grandma is not able to talk, she has some very good and valid points too. Um, to if you'd like to join our story time, you can still join this story time as podcast or just in general story time. You can come through their Discord, and also to put that link up for your Discord, Chief, for the
uh,
so they can actually read the stories. And some of them, as you had said, they are different than they are in the book. A lot of them were
yeah,
re-edited. Hmm.
yeah.
And also, have you had news on your other book yet?
Oh yes, it would be coming. The second manuscript or the second book got accepted yesterday.
Nice.
So yay!
So, not a celebration on that. Another book, right? More
Yeah,
stories. And so, if anybody, again, we're building said community, I will put all the information in the description box for this one. Any of the links that we have for you to purchase your book, and the Discord links for people can come in here and join. And anybody else can wants to do a story time or has stories they also want to share and contribute, they're more than welcome to. And
yeah. Because we're always open to people telling their stories.
yes, one of the biggest things to learn, one of the biggest messages that came then is all perspectives matter because it actually triangulates and tells us the wider scope of story that we're in, the whole picture, right? So everybody's path is valid. Everybody's way of getting to a space is valid. Everybody's way of perceiving something is valid. When we start to put those common threads together, we see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that's where healing comes in.
I always like hearing stories.
You do. Okay, so I am going to end this podcast. Thank you all for joining.
Yep.
And it was a
Thank you
pleasure.
for letting me share, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right.